In game development, there are many positions: designers, developers, testers, QA, artists, project managers, and so many more depending on what type of game you're building. Each role could be potentially a good fit for you, but today we're gonna talk about what it takes to become a great artist. I've been in game development industry for over 5 years, and I'll share my view of a general structure and the path that you need to follow in order to become a great artist. As a quick reminder, the topic for this video was suggested by one of my subscribers, so if you're interested in me discussing some other topics, be sure to leave a comment and subscribe for more content. Firstly, as you start your journey in this field, you need to decide what type of artist you want to become. There are quite a lot of different types, but here are the main ones. You can become a concept artist, and that is the person who comes up with the initial design for the environment, characters, and objects. Then you can become a 2D artist, the one who produces 2D graphics and assets like textures, images, and user interface elements. Then, not surprisingly, you can become a 3D artist, the one who works with 3D graphics, which involves creating models, working with meshes, and many other different things. Lastly, you can become a UI UX designer, the one who works with user interfaces and user experiences to make sure that the game is intuitive and it looks good. There are also additional variations of artists, for example, the VFX designer or visual effects artist, but we're not gonna get into that just so that we don't get overwhelmed. This is a good place to start, and you can always choose to specialize later on in your career. Now let's talk about the career path of a more popular type of artist, which is a 3D artist. A lot of people keep asking me this question: what is the difference between a 3D artist and a 3D modeler? Similar to what are the main differences between the programmer and the coder, a 3D artist is the person who needs to usually perform a wider range of duties. While a 3D modeler is the one who usually works with just the geometry and meshes, a 3D artist is the one who's responsible for the whole pipeline, including, again, geometry, rendering, animations, visual effects, and so many more things. Now that we've decided that we're gonna take a look at the career path of a 3D artist, let's take a look at the steps that you need to take in order to be successful and in general just to learn quicker. So first of all, an essential step, you need to decide on what tools you're gonna be using as a 3D artist. And you have a couple of options here. Firstly, you can always go with the popular options that are available on the markets, or you can research the instruments that are used by your favorite GameDev studios. Some of the popular options are ZBrush, Autodesk Maya, as well as 3ds Max. However, for beginners, I would advise you to go ahead and start with Blender, since it's a great free solution with a lot of support as well as tutorials that are available online. So once you've picked your tool and you started to learn through the tutorials and online courses, you move to step number 2, which would be to create a portfolio. And you should start creating your portfolio right away, even if you have a couple of projects available to show. And a good advice from my side would be to create a website where you could showcase your work. You should check out one of my videos where I talk about how to write a good resume. I mentioned what it takes to create a good portfolio as well. And once again, be sure to include everything that you've learned from tutorials, online courses, and just any pet projects that you've worked on. Update your portfolio regularly because it's pretty easy to forget what you've worked on in the past. It is very important for anyone in any industry, for any type of job, to have a good portfolio available, but for 3D artists it is especially essential, but it's also something pretty easy to do. And once you've done all that, you've learned the tools, you've created a portfolio, now it's time for the third step and for you to start looking for a job in a game dev studio. Use online employment platforms, as well as don't be afraid to message game dev studios directly. Trust me, this will help you stand out. Your main goal at this point would be to get a job, and this is because when you put yourself in the right environment with smart people around you, this causes your learning to double or even triple in speed. And since you are a beginner, this is exactly what you should be focusing on. I know it could be quite challenging as a junior 3D artist to find a job. That's why there are a couple of options that are available for you to overcome this challenge. First option would be to find an internship, and this will allow you to acquire some additional knowledge, as well as, and which is more important, this will guarantee that you will most likely get a job at a company that provided that internship in the first place. The second option would be to go into freelance. You will be able to get some additional practice, add some points to your resume, as well as earn some money in the process. And you could just stay as a freelancer and continue working forward, but once again, I would personally advise you to get a job at this stage. Learning from your peers and colleagues is just so essential in the early stages of your career, so at least have a job for 2 or 3 years and then you can make a decision later on. If you manage to find a good company, this will really allow you to learn the industry standards, main processes, as well as best practices. But be sure to research the company where you could potentially start to work, because this will influence how fast and how quickly you will grow as a 3D artist. If it's not obvious from your research, you can always ask questions during your interview. So ask about the team, what task will you be completing, as well as your responsibilities. And for those who don't like the idea of working for somebody else, meaning having a job, remember that you can always come back to freelance at any time. And after you've gotten a job, then we move on to step number 4, and that would be you learning everything about all the different topics so that you can reach the senior level position. Because really, after you reach a seniority level in whatever field, you really don't have to worry about anything at all, and you're pretty much set. And only at that point in time do you have an option to continue further advancing in your field, perhaps change the field, or even go into freelancing. But again, if you reach the senior level position, you're set. You don't have to worry much about anything. You will always be a demanded specialist on the market. And that is it. Now you know what it takes to become a successful artist in game development. We did not go into many details because this is something that you will have to figure out on your own. However, we did create a general structure that you can follow to grow fast and effectively. The main algorithm and career outline is pretty similar to other types of artists as well. There are just certain nuances and things that you're gonna have to adjust. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like. If you have any additional questions, be sure to leave them in the comments. Have a good day and see ya!